What else? I want to see Fable. Because I heard a lot about this game.
Hey people, Sseth here. Today, I'll be covering an old childhood classic. A game that taught me that outside the safety of cities and towns, the entire natural world wants us dead. And you can't walk 5 meters without being mauled, stung, or assaulted by wildlife. That money can buy happiness, reverses aging, and helps everyone forget that you butchered an entire village 5 minutes ago. And that divorcing your wife is objectively worse than murder. I'm speaking, of course, about Fable, but not just Fable. Fable, The Lost Chapters, and Fable Anniversary, because they're all the same game, but Lionhead Studios needed 3 times the money. Released in 2004, Fable was the game that justified buying an Xbox Classic. I know this because I owned an Xbox Classic. It had about 3 games on it, and one of those was Enter the Matrix, which still haunts me to this very day. But I digress.
Guess it was trash.
Anyway, Fable is a game about an experience all of us can relate to. Having your parents killed and your village burnt to the ground, only to be saved by an influential pedophile and forced into a life of indentured servitude. And after years of emotional and physical abuse, you're released into the great wide world with the expectation that you won't become a brooding menace to society. You're conditioned like an animal to follow the action-reward psychology of being a hero. The dopamine release of completing quests is all that drives your addiction for fame and relevance.
Do you have like multiple endings in Fable?
Is a liar, but he's also a genius because throughout the game you're forced to make choices. Not reasonable choices, not thoughtful choices, but picking between the 2 extremes of morality, good or evil. Here is a typical moral dilemma as presented by Peter Molyneux. As you walk along the road, you encounter a homeless man being bullied by a delinquent teenager. The good option? Scare off a bully. The evil option? Beat that homeless man within an inch of his life and crack his rib cage open like a coconut crab. Both options give you the same amount of alignment points. It's insane, it's nonsensical, and I absolutely love it. There's not much to say about the story. You go do quests and uncover the fact that some of your family isn't dead, so you reunite with them, only to have them all die except your sister, who I always spare because she's pretty damn hot. So you kill the big bad guy that's been making your life miserable, and Fable 1 ends there because they ran out of time. Then you have to kill the big bad guy's persona avatar in The Lost Chapters, which is an expansion featuring a completely new area with reskins of all the monsters you fought before, and some extra content that was cut from the original. You can redo all this in the Anniversary Edition, which is a high-definition remaster of Lost Chapters, with extra bloom and gloom to drain out the color. While colors are faded, the characters aren't, and all the new models look great, including Lady Grey, the only good romance option in the entire game. If you're not familiar, Lady Grey is the sultry mayor of Bowerstone North. She's also a crazy racist bitch that gets turned on by seeing black people die in front of her. Unlike Lost Chapters,
wait, what, for real?
Anniversary has built-in controller support for the PC. Anniversary Edition also has limited modding support, which is completely broken and unusable. However, this didn't stop one man whose autism was more powerful than we could have ever imagined. Mr. Defini used his modding talents to replace every wasp in the game with Shrek, including the Queen.
More wasps have spawned, but they are no match.
God bless Australia. Fable is very simple. It's also very easy. I would actually be very impressed if you somehow managed to lose the game, because you can't actually die as long as you're digesting food. Turns out, it's not a question of how strong you are. It's a question of how many apples you brought. You start as a child apprentice at the Heroes Guild, but after a few tutorials, everything fast forwards until you're a fully grown adult. Before that, you'll have to tolerate living with Whisper.
It's time to wake up. Get out of bed, lazy bones.
Doing unpaid
thank you so
labor for the
much
guild.
for the 20
Well
sub
done,
gift. Thank
lad.
you. Thank you,
The
thank you, thank you,
Beatles
thank you,
are
thank
all
you.
dead.
Thank you.
And holding back tears while doing favors for the guildmaster.
Just keep going till I tell you to stop. Ah, now that's more like it. Get used to the weight of this sword.
I think you've earned yourself some pocket money for that.
Then you can finally go out into the great wide world of Albion. You can tell this place was inspired by Britain, as all the peasants speak like they're inbred. They also have one of those characteristic British smiles. Lionhead Studios hates the working class, so they've made every effort to make you hate them as much as possible. You can interact with them, use emotes, and even marry them. I learned very early in life that the only two ways to get out of marriage is through domestic violence or becoming a widow. As a hero, you take quests from the guild. Some are optional, some are essential for progressing the story. They're quite straightforward. Occasionally, Whisper will show up to annoy you even more and steal your experience points because her skill set is designed for kill stealing and contributing absolutely nothing to a team fight. The skill points you did manage to save from Whisper's firebombs and flips can be spent at the guild on upgrading your hero. As you level up your abilities, your hero will also physically change, growing taller and more muscular. This game is living proof that there's no excuse for being a manlet, so hit the gym and squat your way into becoming 7 feet tall. There are downsides to upgrading your abilities, as each point spent makes you physically older, developing wrinkles, memory loss, and once you hit the age of 65, forces you to spend about 20,000 gold on a hip replacement. You can choose not to do this, but you'll have to keep taking morphine shots to numb the pain for the rest of the game. There are proven ways to reverse aging, of course, like sacrificing your wife to the dark gods.
A pathetic contribution.
Interestingly, this is still slightly less evil than divorcing her. There's a lot of skills to choose from, but like men, skills aren't made equally. Magic restores very slowly, so you'll be forced to chug down mana potions if you plan on using spells. The one upside of being a mage is that you can still use emotes while spellcasting, so you can keep thrusting away as you electrocute your enemies to death. Others are completely broken. Assassin Rush lets you blink behind enemies and abuse the AI. Fun fact, Assassin's Rush can sometimes glitch into the terrain when combined with Summon. Please don't use this in the Chamber of Fate, or you might accidentally glitch your way under the floorboards and obtain the Sword of Aeons 30 minutes after starting the game. Multi-Strike allows you to completely ignore the combat system since it can't be blocked and has no cooldown, and Time Stop lets you run through about 80% of the game without even lifting a finger. There's a lot more skills out there, but they're far too balanced to be worth talking about. Except heal. Heal is absolutely vital when your character gets too muscular, as your fists might unintentionally kill your wife. Use heal between beatings to keep her healthy, and to get rid of any bruising that might be used as evidence against you in a court of law. Quests typically award you a lot of gold. Most players will spend this on improving their gear or buying new weapons. Real gamers spend it all on playing blackjack and buying yourself an appropriate title so you don't go insane from listening to the villagers. Based on old save files I found from when I was 12 years old, I can tell you with high certainty that the most popular titles everyone picked were Assassin, Necromancer, and Reaper. We were really edgy kids back then. In between quests, you can go and wander around town, trade, and get constantly mocked by older heroes who are past their prime.
He can't entrust important quests to novices like you.
I see they're letting the children out of the guild early these days. Now, move aside, will you? I don't need you crowding me too. Can you move away now? You're getting in the way of my fans. I hear you can make a decent living out of fishing. Or maybe begging's more your style.
As if that wasn't bad enough, the Guildmaster will constantly Skype call you for your guild seal, giving you great advice when you need it the most.
Your health is low. Do you have any potions or food? Try to get your combat multiplier even higher.
Don't worry, you get a chance to kill them all later.
It's time I showed the world who the real hero is.
Well, I'm rather fond of my soul. I'm not giving it up without a fight.
Okay.
There's a lot of activities outside town, including side quests, puzzles, and fishing. However, fishing is a good way to catch carpal tunnel, as it involves rapidly mashing left click on the PC. So, to avoid this, I turn on my auto clicker. I set it to a 1 millisecond delay time, so I can catch the fish instantly. Modern problems require modern solutions. You can customize your hero however you like. Different haircuts, facial hair, tattoos, and clothing will provoke different responses from the town townspeople. Some of these might not make sense, so you should always ask yourself, what would a British woman find attractive? And go from there. The last chapters lets you own a brothel as well, which you couldn't in the base game. Lost Chapters
Excuse me,
is
what?
better in every way compared to the original. It's beautiful, it's got a lot to
Oh my...
do, and it's absolutely busted with the ways you can abuse the system. Peasants lack any kind of business sense and will happily sell you all of their stock. Then they begin panicking from the lack of supplies and offer to buy it all back at greatly inflated prices to end the shortage. You can do this infinitely and ruin the economy. Another scheme I used to run was being pure good and extremely famous, so peasants would never question why I need to lead them to a secluded spot in the woods. Once there, they'd all die of mysterious circumstances. When this happens, the family would have to sell the house in order to pay for funeral expenses. I would immediately snatch up the property and rent it
so
out. I then
fucking-
repeat this for every property
What?
in town.
There's so much
Days
details to
later,
this
the
game.
town is repopulated by the descendants of all those unfortunate peasants who are forced to pay rent to me, their benevolent landlord, for all eternity, unaware of the fact that I may have had a role in their parents' demise. Fable. It's ridiculous, it's entertaining, and it's probably one of the most interesting games ever made by Peter Molyneux. If you haven't already, then I sincerely recommend you give it a try. And if you have, well, I'm just feeding off your nostalgia. This time, The Lord of Lies gets my vote, and I give it a 6 out of 6, which is the number of simultaneous wives you can have in every village, provided none of them ever find out. Personally, I look down on polygamy, so if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go hold hands with my husband. As always, more content to come.
Oh,
so
you can be
stay
gay!
tuned. Probably much more autistic content, so be warned. A warm thanks to the many members of the Merchants Guild generously funding and bankrolling these videos. You're all truly wonderful. Have a good one.
Okay, up. Let's watch another one. You told me to look at the Dwarf Tower, right?